So with that, I'll let Neil get us started.
Thank you, Ann. Welcome, everyone. We always appreciate when you take the time out of your day to come listen to these, and hopefully you'll find this one interesting. If you are one of the customers this is targeted for, I'm sure you'll find it interesting because there's a lot of things going on out there in that world for Microsoft Exchange Online users that have caused them to sit up and take notice. And of course, the first thing that did that was the announcement from Microsoft basically saying they are discontinuing support on something that they had previously supported. And while that's not unusual, everything in the software world ages eventually. This was extremely abrupt, unexpected, and with a very, very short fuse. And as a result, it left a lot of larger enterprise customers scrambling to figure out what it meant, and then they have to start the process of deciding what to do, and that involves, because it's going to take money, a budget process, and getting it all done in the less than a year time frame that Microsoft gave customers is really one of the points that makes this one, I think, catching so much attention right now. If you're one of those customers, you really have to scramble to make sure you're taken care of. And it's unlike Microsoft to do it quite like this, and it's got a lot of people thinking about what's going on with them. But in the long term, we can certainly watch and see what else they're going to do. But in the short term, there are now customers who basically had a particular architecture that Microsoft supported that they will no longer support as of July in 2018. And what this architecture is there are customers who decided to use Exchange Online along with Office 365, but they didn't want to use Microsoft's telephony component. They didn't want to go to Skype, so they maintained their legacy PBX in their enterprise, and that could actually forward calls up to the Exchange in the cloud, and it did that by going through a session border controller. And the session border controller is what's not going to be supported anymore. It's really not, it's not that they don't support the border controller, it's that that particular architecture simply won't be supported. So if you have that architecture, you have to come up with another alternative. It's interesting to us because we've been in the unified messaging business for a long time. We kind of try to do the exact opposite of what Microsoft did. We try and widen our scope for our product and support more and more architectures and more customers. So this is a little unusual. I have to admit, a lot of our great business comes from our competitors who don't seem to take care of customers quite as well. So we have a lot of years doing this. We're going to talk about some options, and keep in mind, of all the people you could go to solve this problem, there is no one that has as much experience in the market, both by the years that we've been doing it and by the number of customers that we've already done it for. So Exchange Online users basically can move to our product and know that they're not getting something new. They won't be the first customer for a vendor that's just trying to capitalize on this one opportunity. And we are in the right world. We support enterprises, and we have done for many, many years, and we have a customer list we can show and all the other proof that we have done this before. You can be comfortable with us doing this. If you kind of look at our Provenance, we've been doing all of this, even the unified messaging part, for over 20 years. And very few people can say that. And the product we're going to use has been the one that we have used for those years. We were lucky. We started at a time where you could build a product with an open system and industry standard components, and we did that. And therefore, we have not had to sunset our product in all the years we've been in business. We've had to upgrade hardware and operating systems and a lot of things, but the product that we are now installing for our customers, we've been installing for over 30 years, and it's the most reliable and feature-rich product on the market. So you won't be in the case of you have to hurry to solve this problem Microsoft's given you, so you have to take kind of a second-best solution. We're hoping to convince you in this webinar that this will be a good move from you, not just the least onerous move, but actually a very positive move. So here are the people we're talking about. There are some people out there, and they basically have their PBX on site, and that phone system could be an older PBX, it could be a brand new PBX. Doesn't really matter. And that PBX, when the calls forward to voicemail, or when callers want to go to automated attendant, today it goes through in this architecture I'm looking at, a SIP media gateway, through typically an on-premise session border control and firewall, out across the internet with a connection back into Microsoft's cloud. And in Microsoft's cloud, there is a session border controller that it connects to, and then from there, of course, it connects directly to the Exchange Online servers. So that's the architecture that is no longer supported. There's a second variation of that where a few PBX manufacturers actually worked with Microsoft such that their SIP trunks could connect directly, still through the session border control firewall, etc., but they didn't need a separate media gateway. And those people, though, have the same solution when they get to the other end. They're coming out of the cloud, going into Microsoft through that session border controller. Now, what Microsoft likes to say is it's too much trouble, so we're not going to support the session border controller anymore. But that's not really what it is. They don't particularly want this version of unified messaging to be around anymore. And we're going to show you how we're so comfortable with that in just a couple of slides. So the business challenge for those customers is if you want to keep that third-party PBX and you still want to have your messages in Exchange, you basically need to change. You're going to have to figure out an option where you can still do what you want to do, still take care of your customers, minimize the disruption to your business, but at the same time, you can't do the old method. Now, one of the reasons we're so secure in the belief that Microsoft is really kind of just trying to nudge people into certain directions is when they put out this notice, they gave you some options. Option 1, this is, I think, the motivating factor here. Get rid of your third-party PBX and move to the Cloud PBX, Microsoft's new PBX in the cloud, and still continue to use Office 365 and Exchange Online. And that sounds like an option that might be of interest until you research the Cloud PBX. The Cloud PBX, I have yet to find a customer who could use that. It is so new, so incomplete that for almost no enterprise customer, that's going to be any kind of valid option. Option 2 is to go ahead and migrate to their other phone system, Skype for Business, in the enterprise. So take out your legacy PBX and buy the whole new infrastructure, license all your employees for enterprise voice, and that particular architecture will still let you store messages up in the cloud. So option 1 and option 2 are basically let Microsoft herd you in their direction. Option 3 is kind of a halfway migration kind of policy where they say, if you already have a deployment of Skype and PBXs on site, then you can use that Skype piece on site to go ahead and do the steering of the messages up to Exchange Online and still keep your legacy PBX. There'll have to be some gateways, and there's still going to be quite a bit of cost involved in doing that, and you will have to license every single user for enterprise voice to set that up. So if you don't already have enterprise voice set up for all your users, that's almost as expensive as option 2 would be. And then the other option, which they just kind of throw in at the end, is you can go to some other product. But that's not very well explained in the Microsoft announcement. You can go to some other product, and some other product can do everything you need to do, minimize the disruption of your business when you go there, and actually give you new features that you really couldn't have in just the Exchange Online And that's pretty much the area where we come into play. We are one of those products that you can go to solve your problem and not see much disruption and have the option to add additional functionality. And we're not going to cover much of that additional functionality here. This isn't really, you know, a play to have you learn all about our product. We have plenty of webinars where we can do that, or direct conversations with you, or put you in contact with one of our dealers who could explain the advantages of the product. But keep in mind, as you look at a solution, we are the best of breed unified messaging solution out there. Almost all consultants and media magazines will tell you if you want the best unified messaging product, which is what you have with Exchange If you want a product, go to the AVST CXE solution. We've been doing it longer. We have more customers installed. We have both longevity and mass in terms of how many people we have out there. So if you decide to replace your Exchange Online with our solution, very little will change. Your users can still get their messages in Exchange. They can still use their existing forms in Outlook that they're using today, with just a few small exceptions. And that solution, you can be comfortable when it goes in, is tried and true. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands, probably millions of users with it, and a 15, 20-year history with that product. So some of those other solutions that you would look at will be brand new products. There'll be people that heard this announcement from Microsoft, went in and typed some quick code in their product, and they kind of have a way to do a workaround and get you there. They will all be very, very expensive because they all really require you to deploy Skype to get on site. Almost all of them. There's a few that don't. But none of them will have the depth of experience that we have. When you look at unified messaging, and if you look at moving to our product, it is fully complete. It does everything that Exchange does, plus a lot more. It does it the same way, the exact same way. We can store messages in the user's inbox as an email. It's a WAV file attachment. There's players to play the messages. They can, if you're pushing messages out to the users with something like Exchange ActiveSync, they'll get their voicemail messages. We offer all that. The transcription of voicemail to text, a speech user interface, everything that you might be using. We have that and have had it much, much longer than Microsoft, and certainly much longer than any of the other options that you would face. So if this is something where you're still in the decision-making process, and you don't want to go the pay a lot of money and move to Skype route that Microsoft recommends, then it's probably worth your time to have a conversation with us. Now, what we do is different architecturally. Functionally, it's almost identical, but it's different architecturally, and there's some advantages in the way we do it. So instead of having your phone system forward across a very expensive Skype gateway into Exchange Online which is what all the other options really are going to give you, is we put the brains of the system, our CXE server, in your enterprise. So all phone calls stay within the enterprise, which is a nice security benefit as well, plus very limited traffic out across through to the cloud. So whereas those other options are going to actually move the phone call, we are just going to move the message. So in this architecture, someone calls in. Let's do a forwarded message first. They call in, they go into perhaps the phone through a DID to user A's phone, rings 3 times, it forwards. It now forwards into the CXE server, which is right on site. That's where the application's running. It gets answered. It takes the message. It does basically everything that needs to be done. Customer hangs up. That message is now moved across the same data connection, but now instead of a call taking 64 kilobits a second, you're moving a message that's probably about 200K. And the great thing, besides the fact that it'll use much less bandwidth, is in the event that that data connection goes down, doesn't matter. Still, everything's going to work from an outside caller point of view. We're still going to answer the call, play all the menu prompts, record new messages, etc. Now, if you're a user set up to store your messages in Exchange Online and the connection's down, we obviously can't deliver that message, so we cache it. Eventually, once that connection comes back up, we move all those messages. New messages that come in during the failure, we actually convert the user's mailbox into a voicemail-only type configuration. So you can actually call in if the data connection is down out to Exchange and get those messages on the phone. Can't get them in the email client because we can't get them to Exchange. But basically, the amount of survivability gained is pretty impressive. If you have trouble with your data connections on a regular basis, you'll find this a much more pleasant experience. Now, if you look at the other options, what they're going to do is take that forwarded call, and I just have a couple of them named up there. There's 3 or 4 more now that you could use. They're going to connect to that on-premise Skype server, where you have to configure a full Skype setup, including license every user for enterprise voice, and then they're going to forward that call across the data connection into the Exchange Online where the call takes place. So the entire call happens across that data channel, greatly increasing the amount of data you use and making you completely reliant on that data connection. If your data connection goes down in this case, you're going to get a ring no answer. There's no intelligence in any of those products. They're just format converters. So if you compare that, where the telephone calls move, which means they're completely reliant on the data connection, versus the CXE architecture, where only the messages move. And once again, having been doing this for over 20 years, we've put a lot of extra thought into this, such as, let's say a message does go into Exchange, and you call in from the outside into the CXE system to replay, you're going to get your message over the phone. CXE is going to ping the Exchange Online server, bring the message ID number back, and most likely it's going to play that message from a local cache copy, even further reducing the amount of traffic on the network. So there's a lot of things you'll find in terms of the architecture that we've developed and how we've deployed the product over the years, that if you were making a decision right now on whether to go with us or Exchange Online, if you could, you might find our product has some benefits that would have tipped you over to our side anyway. So I think the goal here is to understand what the other solutions deliver versus what we deliver, what the costing is. The solutions that require a Skype server are going to be ridiculously expensive. And then I suppose there is the option where you might just want to throw in the towel, get rid of your PBX, and move to Skype. I would say that's possible. I would say moving to the Cloud PBX as an option probably isn't possible for most of you. So if you go with the AVST option, you'll find a product most flexible and scalable on the market. It integrates with everything. We don't care what your PBX is out there. We are the leader in integration, both in the premise and the cloud. So not only could you do this today to solve your immediate problem, but if you're looking at in 6 months from now, going to a Cloud PBX or upgrading to a different brand PBX or doing a software upgrade that moves you up to a SIP-compatible PBX, it just won't matter. We will integrate with all those. Once you put our product in, it'll be yours for life, and you'll find that we don't limit you in the way you can grow at all. And that's one of the interoperability benefits with the CXE compared to anything else out there on the market. If you go ahead and use our product, you can continue to use your Exchange Outlook forms that are already there. There's one piece of functionality we haven't quite got working yet, but the basic play the messages functionality and have it look the same will be available to you. But I will say we have our own Outlook form that is much more functional, that does a lot more than the one you'd be used to. It does the same thing. There's a little player bar. You can push the button. You can play it over the phone. You can play it over your speakers. But it also does some live reply functionality and some other things that most people would find very, very handy. No matter which way you go, with our forms or you continue to use the Microsoft forms, the telephony functions will now come from us. In other words, when you call in, you will not be in Exchange UM. You will be in our server. And so our interface will be a little different. We have a lot of choices for the telephone user interfaces, including one that's very, very close to what you'd be using now. We have the speech interface. We have all the tools, all the functionality that you would need. So there really would be just minimal disruption to your business if you went that way. And if you do that, I highly suggest you talk with somebody about the other pieces of functionality that run on our same server that you might choose to deploy at the same time. What you'll find with our product, it's different than anyone else's product on the market, is if you ask us about a new solution, we won't say, okay, well, here's how much that server costs. There may be a licensing charge, or there may not even be that, but everything runs as one application, which means it's much less expensive to implement, much easier to maintain, and there's just an incredible array of functionality that can run on that server. It's a rare case when we talk to a customer about this kind of replacement where they don't find 2 or 3 other things that they didn't realize they could do that make our product just a perfect choice. And if you do decide over time to leave your legacy PBX, we are also the only other system that can give you a full integration to Skype for Business. So if today you had Skype for Business and you didn't like Exchange Online because of the limitations of message storage and some of the things like that, you could use our system in place, but nobody else. It's just the two of us right now, Exchange Online and the CXE system that can support Skype. If you look at moving to Skype down the road, you'll find we have a history here as well. We've been doing this for years. Partial migrations, full migrations. We have references and a lot of experience in this business. We're a little unique. We realized, though we are in the telephony world, we realized a long time ago that the data world was going to overcome basically and take over the telephony world eventually. So we started growing our resources internally, and we managed to get to the point where we are not only a gold partner with Microsoft, but we both have messaging and communications certifications. There's only a handful of those in the whole world. And we knew we needed that because we have a foot solidly planted in both worlds. So we're very comfortable in the Microsoft world. Now, this is a very difficult decision for people. They have to learn a lot and make a very important choice in a short time frame. And even when they get that part down, the next part slaps them in the face is there's got to be some money for it. Any way you do this, it's going to have a cost associated with it. And so what we've decided to do is see if we can alleviate a little of that sticker shock. So we have a special program that if you're moving from Exchange Online UM to our system, there's some things that we can do to greatly reduce the price of that. And the reason we want to do that is we just love to bring customers on board and keep them on board. So we have found that in a case like this where we know you have to make a decision, we know there's going to be an economic burden, this is not just your simple, oh, we'll give you a 5% discount. This is a massively different way of pricing that says, like, since if you want to use the Exchange online forms, continue using those, we'll give you all the unified messaging licenses for free. Since you're not using our piece, then why would you have to pay for it? If you sign a maintenance agreement over an extended number of years, we'll cut great amounts of money off the basic core system as well. So if nothing else, you probably should talk to one of our dealers in terms of seeing economically if that isn't just reason enough to make this the option you pick over all the rest. It's a lot of work to have to do this. It's a short time frame, getting shorter all the time, considering what it takes to get through budgets and everything else. So please feel free to reach out to us directly or to any one of our dealers, and you can contact us and we can put you in touch with a dealer in your area. We're happy to do that, happy to have direct conversations with you. So anything we can do to help you out during this transition, we are more than happy to do it. And that brings us to questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Neil. Okay, there are a couple of questions already in the queue, and I will let you know if you have the webinar panel minimized and you did want to submit a question, you can use the orange arrow in the upper corner to expand that, and you should see the question box. Okay, so Neil, first question, and you might have actually covered this. I think the question came in earlier, but I'll ask it anyway. How does this affect companies with more than one PBX?
Well, that's one of the things that I think is going to make this more complicated for people that have multiple PBXs. We are lucky in that we're not owned by a PBX company or a networking company. Therefore, we have designed our product to work with not only any PBX, old or new, but any number of PBXs. So our average enterprise customer probably has a half a dozen different locations with 3 or 4 different manufacturers' PBXs. So no matter what you have and what your network looks like, we would be able to tie all that together. If you had 4 locations and only one of them perhaps is affected, you could just put CXE in on that one location if you wanted, but it would actually be very easy for you to go ahead and put components of CXE in for all those phone systems and tie your entire infrastructure together. That's the kind of conversations we'd love to have with you.
Okay, next question. How about the speech-to-text feature? Does AVST have this similar to Exchange UM?
We do. It's a little different in that it's not a core part of the product. It requires a separate license. But we do have the same kind of thing available where on a per-user basis, you can set them up so that their messages get translated into text and put into their inbox. We have 2 versions. One version, you can buy the components and do it on-site behind your own firewall if security is a major concern. Another version, which is a little less expensive, goes out to the cloud. The transcription is done and the messages are put back in your email. And you can kind of mix and match any way you want to do that.
Okay, next. In your opinion, did Microsoft make this change to SBC support to push customers to a full Skype deployment?
No, I don't think they did, because at the time they were doing that, they were backing off from Skype and trying to tell everybody, no, don't even put Skype in on the enterprise, go directly to our Cloud PBX. So when this planning happened, they were very bullish on the Cloud PBX. And we had customers that we were well down the process of putting something in with Skype, who Microsoft said, no, don't even put Skype in on site. Go with the Cloud PBX. And then, of course, everyone found out that the Cloud PBX can't hook up to anything else. So all the third-party apps that people have written to make Skype a true full-range PBX solution don't work with the Cloud PBX. And I think Microsoft got slapped around a little since then. And if you look at their latest story, it's, no, we have two product streams. We have the Cloud PBX, and then we have the wonderful Skype PBX. And they're very much back to Skype now. But at the time they did this, they were trying to back away from Skype. So they're not sure what they want in the market, I don't think. And I think they jump ahead a little without understanding their customer base very well, which I think they did in this, frankly, where I don't think they expected the amount of pushback that they've gotten. So I don't think they were trying to push you to Skype, although now that's what they will say, because they realize they really can't get very many people to go to the Cloud PBX until they beef it up a little bit, let's just say.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Just a quick scroll. Looks like we got through the questions. There were just only those few. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Just one more quick note. I will send an email later today, which will include a link to the slides that you can download if you'd like to get a copy of these, as well as the recording in case you want to forward that to a colleague or if you got interrupted and want to listen to it again. So we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks everyone for taking the time to join us, and I'll let Neil close this up as well.
Thank you, Ann, and thanks everybody again for attending. You know, we do these for you, for the customers, to make sure you get the information you need. So hopefully you find them informative. If you don't, let us know, or if you do, you could let us know, or if there's something else you'd like to see us cover. And the easiest way to do that is to send something to info@avst.com, and you will be stunned at how quickly someone gets back to you, because that is a major communications channel for us. Out there in the world, with everything changing as fast as it is, we like to think that, you know, we're more on top of this than most of our competitors. So let us know how we're doing. Thanks.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.